my slips, my falls, my trials and tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop me, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Samuel Leggett here representing Team JVS. To my great excitement, there is a brand new Max original, I'm talking about HBO Max series called Raised by Wolves. Now, this is being created, written, also directed by certain episodes, first few episodes specifically by Ridley Scott. If you don't know who he is, do your homework, because this is right in his veins. Like, he injected himself into this series. And I mean, the best parts of what Ridley Scott really does from the science fiction genre is he is very specific, he's very concise, and he also explores and delves into what the human element really is in an unintentionally weird world. And the thing about this series that's so captivating is just how vast it is emotionally, physically, and just from a depth of field. From watching it, it visually looks beautiful. Like there are moments where you see like something flying in the air and you're like, wow, this is some good quality level. And then there's some emotional, unsettling moments that you start to question, you know, your own morality and what their real beliefs are, and you know how flawed things might be given their circumstances over time. And this does take place in like 2100s. So like think 2143, 2145, around that time frame. So it's been a lot of stretch of time. And through this point, and even you can see in the very opening crawl, mankind has had to go off Earth, and we've kind of put our own differences, and it's kind of like pushed us completely apart. Like we've had to go and find exploration and find colonies and try to find worlds that are sustainable for life. And that's one of the things that's the focal point of this, because you have two specific androids called Mother and Father, and their whole goal is to try to help reaffirm and reestablish human life. And in the way that they do that, from a scientific standpoint, like, is insane. Only Ridley Scott could do it in the way that they, like, from the very first episode, you'll see exactly what I mean by it. It is great. I think the way that they actually do some of the visual casting for the way that the androids do things, like whether it be like their body makeup or where there's such simple VFX changes that they do, I think it's very fascinating. I think I hadn't seen anything quite like it in a long time, not from a television standpoint. And once you know, you start to see what they're trying to do, how they're trying to actually be parental and raising, you know, children, you start to understand, like, wait, what's the name of this? Is Raised by Wolves. Does that mean that they are malicious in intent? Like, what is their real derived purpose? And then when you start to get down to their core beliefs and what they actually were programmed to believe, what they're programmed to do, and what they're going up against, is very insane. Like, for real, for real. Like, I kind of was like caught off guard by the series because I had no preconceived notions at all. Like, I hadn't even seen the trailer, so I was really just kind of brought into this just off of Ridley Scott's name. And I can tell you, from looking at the first six episodes, you're gonna be terrified, you're gonna be wowed, you're gonna be amazed at some of the levels they go to this in this specific series. And I haven't even really described anything about it. Like, I'm just gonna keep this as non-spoiler as I possibly can, but talk around the things that I really did love about it, because this is easily one of the best new shows I've seen in a while. And so let's go down to the casting line. Travis Fimmel, you would know him from Vikings, is playing the role of Marcus. Huge backstory behind his character. Mother and Father. Mother's being played by Amanda Collin, and Abubakar Salim playing the role of Father. Amanda, bruh, they do so much with the character Mother that you're gonna be amazed. Like, you're gonna be terrified by her one minute, you're gonna be questioning, you know, how artificial are you? And then when it comes to Salim's father, like he's just so devoted and like to the book, but kind and nurturing, and like you also start to question like how artificial are you? And that's what makes this show so good, in my personal opinion. Built off of their characters and the way that they broadcast their character development together, they almost function like an actual couple, married couple that are trying to be parental, actual parents to this upcoming generation that they're trying to prepare for this world that they're on. And they don't even know what the world is or what's on it, or whether or not it is sustainable for life. They don't have to worry about those things, but there is always this feeling of a clock, whether that is like, you know, harsh conditions, whether it is like their actual body makeup, whether it is sustainable food or situation. Like there's always feeling like in this series there's a clock, and if the clock strikes, like that's it, it's curtains, it's not gonna work out. And then you got like a whole slew of different kid and child actors. I think they do a really good job. Like for the most part, like they come across really believable. Sometimes it's a little cliche, and sometimes you kind of question like, are these, you know, who's gonna actually survive this? But as you start to go on, you start noticing certain characters that do stand out as far as the kids. Campion is one. I don't want to spoil anything about his character, but he fundamentally and emotionally adds depth to both mother and father, because he doesn't just go with the flow. And he gets humbled and changed progressively from episode 1 in ways that are either gonna upset you or you're gonna be like, you know what, that's a kid. Like that's how kid. And I think that Winter McGrath does an amazing job acting his character. Another standout young actor I would say would be Felix Jameson's Paul. Paul comes from this other group that is outside of what mother and father are trying to do. They have a very strong and strict belief system. And Paul is directly connected to Travis's Marcus. And I don't want to spoil anything about it, but their backstory and their connection is very fascinating. And how we even get to Paul as a character is very, very well written. I think the show itself is paced very well, because from the first episode, you're kind of like left with this impression of like, okay, there's something going on with these androids that just doesn't add up. Stuff just doesn't add up. And yet you go to the next episode, you start going into the human element of where characters like Marcus are and what they're doing, and characters like Paul, like what's the whole point of this character. And from that point, it platforms into these two different dynamics that are going on throughout most of the time. And not just with, you know, this one belief system, this other belief system, but through all the different characters as individuals. There's a lot of times that mother and father don't agree. There's a lot of times that the kids don't agree. There's a lot of times that the danger here is different than the danger right here. There's an overlying problem. People's mental capability, their willingness to be able to survive, or their incapability of being able to survive. It all gets questioned throughout most of the time, the narrative of this story. Now, from a science fiction standpoint, it is amazing. Like, they go into so much detail about the way the mechanics of these androids are, the functionalities of what is capable during this time in history, from a technological standpoint, and yet there's this overlying feeling that you just don't know. What I mean by that element is the science fiction side as well, and you're in a world you've never been. You're around possible alien elements that you don't understand. And that becomes completely evident the very opening shot when you start to look at these bones that are like on this uninhabited planet. You're like, wait. Those bones are huge, but those don't look like dinosaurs. You know what I'm saying? So you start to question things off a rip. And I'm trying my best to be as non-spoiler as I can, but you're gonna love it. You're gonna really love it. I will say this is rated R. Like, there's just some gruesome, violent moments. There's not that much on the nudity standpoint, but there are like sexual themed moments. There's a lot of like implied abuse and things that do happen. A lot of it is not outwardly displayed, so it doesn't distract from the narrative perspective. But the humans that are describing it from expositional standpoint they're still dealing with whatever's happened to them, whatever abuse that's caused from their upbringing. And then there's flashbacks that do imply certain things as well that I think they're very well done. This is a very well shot show. Like, the VFX are great. The character dynamics are great. The way that things are acted are insanely awesome as well. And honestly, it gives you this feel of like the early days of Star Trek, from an explorational standpoint, but then when it get into like the science fiction side of things, I would say like Battlestar Galactica. But at the same time, like, this has got its own flair. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this in a long time, because when you get to like episodes, maybe like I'll say 4 through 6, you start to understand that there's just some things that just not explained at all, that make zero sense from a science fiction standpoint, from a technological standpoint, and from the narrative. That there are things that just do not add up, and I love that about the show. There are things about certain characters I still don't know, and the overlying theme about humanity is also immersed into these two androids that I question, are they really what they think they are? And I'm just like, I love it. I really do love it. And I think you guys are going to love it too. It is coming out September the 3rd on HBO Max. Highly recommend you go and check it out. And yeah, I'll be doing reviews for each episode throughout. And you can go and check out my full entire, more spoilery thoughts on each individual episode. But if you have any other thoughts, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell button. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Make sure you go and check out Raised by Wolves on HBO Max. Peace, guys.